Hey hun, Adam here. Before we get into the episode, just wanted to remind you all to pick up a women's issue of the Prospector newspaper, also available online, showcasing women from across El Paso. Now let's get into the conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello hun, welcome to the Prospector Podcast, a UTEP production made for the students by the students. I'm Adam Regalado, your multimedia editor and host of the Prospector Podcast. Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about faith and religion. What is faith? How do religions morph us as people? And why is it important, if at all? Today we're going to be discussing our own personal views of religion and answering those questions as what we may believe the answers are. I am as well wanting to learn about different religions and faiths in our city. Though a small group today, I hope to continue learning and hope the same for you if you're willing. We are not here to offend or bash people of the religion, but just learn a little bit more about what religion can mean to some of us. I would love to hear what you have to say after listening to this episode, so don't hesitate to drop a comment. I have two people here with me today. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Wayne Carvajal. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some people call us Mormons in the past, but really the official name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I, right now, I'm working right next to UTEP. I am the Institute Director for the young single adults, students that come from UTEP or from even EPCC and other places as well. And I teach religion classes there at the building right next to UTEP. They're on Oregon Street and University on the corner there. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm George Guajardo. I'm a senior undergrad student here at UTEP. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Navy. I served 4 years on a guided missile cruiser as a sonar technician. My major is multimedia journalism. My minor is in English. I'm also a staff writer here at UTEP with the Prospector. So that's what I got going on.
And would you like to share your religious point of view?
I am not religious. Like we were talking about it earlier, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm atheist, although I guess by definition I would be, but I like to think that I'm spiritual at least.
Okay. Awesome. So first I kind of want to just get to know you two a little bit more. So I kind of want to ask, how would you describe your own faith? Whether, just depending on religion, of course, how would you describe it for yourself? Or what faith is in its entirety?
Do you want me to go first?
If you'd like to.
Okay, sure. So I've been in my faith, my religion, I guess, for my whole life. So I grew up in this church, and but I've been around many people that obviously are not, and family members that are not, et cetera, and always enjoyed the diversity of that. That's always been something neat for me. Our religion, obviously, as the name of the church states, we believe in Jesus Christ, and that means we believe in heavenly parents, God, and that He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to help us in this life. As I was walking up here to UTEP, walking through the campus, remembering the good old days, 20 years ago when I was in college, I was just thinking, it's so great to be learning and growing, and sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's boring, annoying. There's a lot of negatives too, but the greatness of just learning about the world, learning about who you are, it's fun. And I was thinking of that as I was walking up, but I was also thinking, man, it can be a little bit disconcerting or confusing when you just don't know the path, or at least don't feel like there is a path, like where is my path? And so that's something that the gospel, religion has helped me have in my life, is a path and a choice. Sometimes you feel like, well, if you have that religion or a religion, then you don't have a choice to follow something else. Oh, I always have a choice, and I love that about it, that I always have a choice to go where I want to go. No one's forcing me or, pressuring me. Yeah, there's definitely family that would like me to be in this church, or others that wouldn't like me to be. People have opinions, and that's great. but I have a choice, and I love that there's that freedom to choose. And in this country, it's a great blessing to have that. You can choose what you want to do. And I believe God actually wants us to have a choice. He doesn't want to force us. And so I believe in a God that is a father of all of his children, that we are his children. We have divine potential. Just like we have a mom and a dad, we have that in heaven, and we have that potential to grow to be like them, like God. And Jesus Christ was the person he indicated to follow so that we could actually make it back to his presence. And I love that about his plan, that he has a plan, that there is a perfect plan, and each person there's a plan for each person in this life. And there's going to be different paths for that, but no, we're not cookie cutters or, I'm thinking of the word like twin. There's not like
Copy
even
and
twins.
paste.
Yeah, even like twins are not the same, right?
Yeah.
And so they're different. There's no one that's the same, but there is a path, a light, and that light is through Jesus Christ. And I recognize many people believe in Jesus Christ. Christianity is very big in the world. It's a major religion, and so. But that's really the guidance that I get, is following his example, and you get that through the scriptures, and we also we believe in, as in the past the scriptures talk about prophets or people that spoke for God. We believe that they're prophets today as well, and that's maybe something that sets us up. And again, no one's forcing me to follow that. I choose to, and I listen, and you can feel the path before you. It's really enlightening. I have no perfect days. Just because I'm in this church doesn't mean everything's perfect. Everybody has trials and troubles, but it really helps me to guide my life. So that's very simplified.
Awesome. I'm not. So I grew up in a household that wasn't really religious. Both my parents had religious black backgrounds, but they individually weren't religious.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents never really, not forced, but, just church wasn't a part of our life, right? And so I grew up and I kind of had I guess I would say a more objective upbringing as to like the teachings and what the institution of religion is, as an outsider and looking at it that way. So I don't find myself believing in, an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God, simply because I guess maybe just not being raised that way, it hasn't facilitated that idea. And I'm not saying that that's what people who are religious now had to have grown up in that, but I think it's just kind of the way things worked out with me. I don't know if things would be different. But I find myself, so like we were talking about before the show, I was stationed in Japan for 3 years, and I found myself drawn a lot to the Eastern religions, like Buddhism and Shinto particularly. They're rooted in like balance, nature, not so much like sort of how the Bible has, kind of like rules a little bit, not rules, but, do this and you're going to make it to heaven. It's more about respecting, the world you live in, treating it kindly, not taking too much, right? Treating people with kindness and that sort of thing. And a lot of parallels with that in Christianity and all the faiths, really, I guess you could say. So I'd say that that's how my religious background is.
I think it's all definitely a personal journey because, as you said, like it was your choice, but you had also said that you have been in the church all your life, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, I grew up very religious. I grew up Baptist. With my mom and dad were both religious. My mom was a Catholic when she was younger, but as she grew up, and they moved to El Paso from Torreon, Mexico, they became Baptists. I don't know how that happened, but they became Baptists.
Mm-hmm.
And so did my dad. And like you said, it was a choice. And for me personally, just with all the people that I've tried to talk to and I've tried to understand, and I tried to understand for a very, very long time personally, because I wanted to be part of the religion, and I wanted to have that faith, as did everybody around me, but for some reason I couldn't. And so it was my decision to just finally leave the church, and having that discussion with my parents was really, really tough. But thankfully they were going through their own things too, so it was kind of just...
It went to the back page.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just, it was your decision. But do you guys think that how we're raised has to have some sort of reasoning for why we are or aren't religious? Though at the end, I think as soon as when we grow up, I think it is our choice. But I know for some people, that's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to leave a place that you might be comfortable in. Would you agree?
I think so. I liken it, and I don't want to make this out to be so trivial, but it's like why people are Cowboy fans in El Paso. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't won anything in 30 years, and we root for them. A lot of us do, right? And it has to do with our family, right? Our friends, our support group. I think it's probably not the best example, but it's like, I guess, a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, we are products of our environment.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I think definitely made a big impact in my life. Had my parents take me to church and to this church, the Church of Jesus Christ, and to go that route. Absolutely, it has a big impact. But what I love about being able to get out in the world and be independent at some point is you grow up and you can learn and see and open your eyes and your ears and see. And I've been able to do that. I'm grateful for that. I just love learning about other religions, other perspectives. I just think this is fantastic. And kind of like, if God really wanted us to be all one way, then he would have made us all one way, right? And he didn't. He allows us to, and I love that. I'm a parent, and as a parent, I can learn from that, because it's really easy to be like, we're going to go to church, we're going to go to this, right? I'm sure like your parents maybe did or tried, maybe they didn't, I don't know, but we're going to do this because this is what I know is good, right? And so we all feel that way, and so we want to continue that, the things that we know are good. But at the same time, it's really important to open your eyes and your mind and your heart and see, is there something out there as well that I'm missing? Honestly, and I think, my generation too, but this generation, it's like, I'm good in my own path, right? But what if your path is just not that great, right? Sometimes you think that, and then you're like, oh, but don't do that to me. You're throwing shade on me. You're like, what are you doing? I'm happy where I'm at. Well, good. I'm actually good. I'm glad that you are. But at the same time, is there something else out there? And I think that's important to also look at that. And I'm not saying I've been, we call it, exposed to everything out there. I've not been to Japan. My wife has. She's been a mission. You've seen our missionaries out there. Yeah. And they hopefully they're not too pushy on you guys, on people, but they go out and explain.
Right.
And it opens up some people's eyes. Some people to other things. Some it doesn't. Like, get out of there. I don't want to hear that. But she went there. She went to Korea, and she told me how different that culture is. And you grew up with that culture, that society. It's like totally different. So definitely, your background has a lot to do with where you are right now. I would agree with that. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned about like the people from the followers of the Church of the Jesus Christ, the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. Yeah. One of the nicest person and people that I've ever met was on my ship. He was our chaplain, and he was part of the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints. And
good for him.
He wasn't pushy like that at all. And
okay.
We actually became good friends, and I spoke to him a lot during the trials of being deployed, and he was. We never spoke of religion, but we spoke of like how to deal with things and like life and that sort of thing. So I always appreciated him as a person, and I thought he is an amazing person.
Yeah, that's great.
First, I want to say, I mean, personally, the missionaries, I've talked to them before.
Oh.
Super nice.
Oh,
super
good,
nice
good, good.
guys.
I
Super
hope
nice
so.
guys. And we're back. But as I was saying, super nice people. I think that, in my personal experience with other religions, that I've tried to have like a conversation with, and because like you said, like our generation, we're on our own path, and I mean sometimes it's scary, and I think that some people that I've talked to about religion and them going on their own path, that's the exhilarating part for some reason though, that they don't know if it's a good or bad one, but that they're doing it themselves.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
people want to be independent now, and I think that's a really big thing. And as somebody who had a lot of questions growing up, wanting to just finally figure out if I was an okay person or if that I was going to heaven or hell, just trying to constantly figure it out, because I finally just admitted to myself that I wasn't going to be able to change the person I am. The answers that I received were not the answers that I wanted, and I mean, that's not going to happen all the time, but it really hurt me for a long time. But I think from your church, at least, they're willing to have a conversation and understand my point of view, at least in my own experience. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but for sure. And I know other churches have missionaries,
Mhm.
but I think experiencing the world is a great thing. I don't know, do you guys fear that when you send missionaries out that they might change their mind?
Good question. Because I'm about to send. I have two older. I have two younger. I have 4 kids. So I have 2 older. One, she's at BYU, Idaho.
Okay.
So she's about to finish her nursing degree, and
Nice.
she is thinking about serving as a missionary. And then I have a senior in high school, a boy, and he's definitely in the same place. And once he graduates, he's trying to figure out. He wants to go to college, but he also wants to serve a mission. And again, we as parents want them to, but at the same time, I'm like, I am far away from trying to force someone to do that, because it's a hard thing to
Right.
go out. They go out for 2 years.
Yeah.
We parents or themselves pay for it, so it's like, as you're not, you just go out, volunteer, and do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it could be a little bit of a worry. Oh, are you, as you're teaching others and being exposed to all the world, are you now going to somehow change?
Will it affect their faith?
It would affect it, yeah, their faith. Yeah, it could. And I wouldn't lie. I don't want to lie and say I'd be happy if they did change. I would not want that. But I think that's normal as a parent to feel that way. But at the
Sure.
same time, I would want them to have their own life and choose. They're not worthy anymore,
Right.
or they can't be saved, or whatever the wording is,
Right.
or you can't be happy because of the way you are. I think that's just gone too far. My personal feeling about it. And yes, there are doctrines or teachings that say
It is what it
how
is.
you have to
right.
be. You be this cookie cutter way, but there are commandments. God has invited us to do those. But again, I think it's important to have people choose that and feel loved. I think huge. So that's from my point of view. I'd hope that they felt loved and that they shared that love with others. But again, I don't know that I'd be super worried about it. I think they're pretty strong in their convictions. But if that were to happen, but boy, that would be a fun, quote unquote, fun thing for me to deal with as a parent.
Yeah.
I would hope I wouldn't be, you're out of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't help me personally. So again, I'm not trying to judge those people that have done that. They did what they did, but I think that there's a better way, and that way is being kind, as Jesus was. He didn't spend his time with perfect people. If you read the
Yeah.
Bible or Scripture, he spends time with people that you wouldn't consider, perfect, very imperfect,
Flawed individuals.
very
Yeah.
flawed,
Yeah.
and that's who he hung out with. And so, who am I to say, well, no, I don't hang out with anybody but these perfect people? We sometimes confuse ourselves
Yeah.
and so go off the rail there a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. Perfect doesn't exist, right? It just, in any faith, in any instance. And to the other point that you made about like Jesus hanging out, he hung out with humans, right?
Yeah.
And And I find it, I think back about like these discussions. One of my ex-coworkers had, he was having problems with his faith. I think I knew that he had probably already let go, but he didn't want to accept it. And so he was talking to people at work about his faith. And one person particularly was like, brother, if you're having questions, you don't have it anymore. It's gone. It's over. And it kind of, you know what I mean? Talking about like the pushing away and the pushing back. And he was like, whoa. You could tell he didn't want to let it go, but it was leaving him at least. And it's something like that kind of would seal the fate of that decision, right? And I always wonder, I'm like, well, what could he have done different? What could he have said different? Maybe nothing. But you could have at least been like, oh, well, let's talk. And I remember we would just have discussions about, well, this and that. And, you know, this is why I am this way. And I'm not saying you have to be this way, but I'm seeing the patterns. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe read the Bible more. As somebody that's not religious, I've read the Bible a lot. And it's a fascinating book. And so I was like, just read that and then see if you get answers. Because for the big...
Can I make a comment on that? I love what you said. And that's awesome that you invited him to actually look at what you believe and actually read it, right? Do you or not? You know, make your choice. The word question stood out to me when you said that. Because I think questions are great. Personally, I don't think having a question about, well, what about this? What about, we have questions. We're human beings. We think. And I think God wants us to think for ourselves and to move forward and progress. Not to be, told every step of the way what we're supposed to do and then just do it like you're not a robot. And so that to me is fascinating, to know that questions are okay. When you get into doubts and stuff, then maybe you're having a harder time, and I think they're okay too. But the questions, especially, you're okay to ask questions. And well, what about this? I think that's great. For example, in our church, how it started is a boy had questions about religion. His name was Joseph Smith. He was 14, and he grew up in upstate New York. And I mean, in America, there's so many churches, and even among the Christians, there's so many different denominations, and one takes it this way, one takes it that way, and then people say, well, you're false, you're true. It gets a little rowdy and kind of hectic, and that's exactly where he grew up back in the 1800s. If you look at a little history, it was some crazy times.
Which is crazy because those people left their countries to escape that sort of stuff.
And then they're here, and then suddenly this kind of
now
thing
it's that,
happened.
yeah.
And so he's like, where am I supposed to go? So he had questions. So our whole church is based on Jesus Christ, of course, but it started with a person having questions about, well, what religion should I have a religion? Should I even, he did believe in God, he believed in the Bible, but is it this one, this denomination, where? And so that's where he went and asked, and he decided to ask God. The Bible says that. When you have questions, ask God. And maybe that's hard for someone that doesn't believe in God, so you kind of have to start with that. But if someone does believe and then he has faith and believes there is a God, then he went to God to ask him. And so that's where that started. So I love the fact that questions are good. Sometimes we get into a rut where, man, I have too many questions. I must not believe. I must not have faith. I would disagree with that. I think having questions,
you're trying to understand,
gets you to understanding. That's what we do with science and other things. Nothing wrong with that. You learn more, you grow. So questions are great. And but then if you're always asking questions and never getting an answer, then that can be nutty.
Yeah.
You got to find some answers. So get to the point where you're humble enough to see the answer. Maybe it's right in front of you. Maybe it's right there. And maybe it's not. Maybe you got to dig deeper. So
I just think with religion, because personally, I had a lot of questions, and I did ask them, Yeah. And it just eventually led to, okay, now I'm having doubts because these answers are making me feel like a bad person, and that I'll never be a good person. And I think that's what a lot of people with have have difficulties with religion, where it's just they ask their question, and sometimes it seems like a religion may be against them. I don't know if you guys kind of sense that sometimes, or
Yeah.
see that in other religions, where I'm just constantly being targeted, or if I don't do one thing right, I'm going to mess it all up for myself. And personally, I think religion is such a beautiful thing, and it's very interesting to me, but I also think it's one of the most terrifying things that we have in our world, solely because I don't know who to believe. I don't know what if I'm doing is right, and so many people believe in good and evil, and for others it's the reverse. So it's just, what is good? What is bad? Is there such thing as good and evil in this world? Which in some religions don't believe that there's good and evil, and in many Christianity religions that there is such thing as good and evil. So it's just confusing and hectic. But I think I want to go into, though it's such a scary thing, for many people it's a comfort. And
Yeah.
I wish I had that privilege of that kind of comfort sometimes too, because not having a religion that I can depend on is sometimes extremely overwhelming, because I don't know where to turn to at times, where I wish I could just listen to a seminar or a preaching or read a verse. And I'm not saying this happens for everybody, because it's totally,
It's different.
Yeah, it's different for
Can be
everybody.
different, right?
But I don't know. What do you guys think about that kind of comfort in religion?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I first started reading the Bible, I started with the Old Testament, and I was blown away at how cruel God seemed to be. I mean, really, it was destroying cities, towers, right? It was famine. Some of the stories were like, whoa. And I think that really solidified it for me, that I knew I wasn't a believer in really Christianity, certainly at any of the Abrahamic faiths, because, you know, they're all sort of related. And yeah, I found it amazing that people could find comfort in this, especially those Old Testament stories. And I know the New Testament gets a lot, you know, with John, and it gets a lot more, a lot less, you know, fire and brimstone, and so I guess, maybe it's the New Testament, and so maybe it's that, you know, and getting there, and then you kind of get there, and it just seems like there's less fire and brimstone, more rules, you know, more do this, do that, and be this way.
Morals and values.
Right, morals and values. And yeah, it astounds me to this day that not in a bad way, that people can find comfort in that. Maybe I'm missing the point, but yeah, it's very intriguing, because those original stories are intense. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your point of view. I think that's good. I would agree that the language, especially in the Old Testament, is a little tougher. It's a little, you know, it's archaic for sure.
Yeah.
And so written thousands of years ago, and then the translations too.
Right,
can be
a lot of
tricky,
gets
you know.
lost.
You get lost in translation.
Yeah.
That's saying. It does. You know, Hebrew, they meant it this way.
Mhm.
Or you think at least you think, because we're studying it today, 3,000 years after they actually wrote it. So it's
Right.
like, did it mean this
The
way?
context could be
Yeah.
different.
And then I think people also kind of like I was saying with Joseph Smith, it was fire and brimstone here, or do whatever you want here, and what's in between. And it's like people also, in my opinion, me, mess it up too. Because let me tell you this story, this is how it is. And so I give my interpretation, but if my kid doesn't read himself or herself, then it's like, he just got it from me, right? So for example, right now you said the tower or what, or this whole city got just, that did happen, but do you know the context? Do you know that many times that God tried to, and again, forgive me, that's what I do all day, is teach the scriptures. So,
Right.
You got me. But do we get the context of what was going on, and how many times God loves those people and wanted to help them? For example, I just, you know, the story of Jonah and the whale, you know, you could go wherever you want with how literal that was or whatever. But that guy, he was a Jew, he didn't want to talk to the Ninevites or the people there in Iraq. and they were pretty wicked, or I guess against his religion.
Mm.
But God said, no, I want you to go teach them. And he said, no, they don't deserve it, right? And I think that's sometimes what sometimes we do in our day. They don't deserve to. They're wicked. They're wrong.
They're out anyways.
They're out.
Right?
They're different than us. They shouldn't be, right? And he was like that. And I love that. That's in the Old Testament. It's like showing us, right there in the middle of it. And he's like, you should destroy this whole city. Like, he was going all the way, bam, get him, fire and brimstone. And he's a prophet, right? He's supposed to love people and guide them to God, not destroy them. Right? And because they were different, or they had different ways. And God kept teaching him, no, I want them. And so he saw that God didn't want him to, or didn't want him not to do that. So he's like, well, I guess I don't want to do that. So he took off. And he's in the water on a ship, and the story says, he's like, so suddenly there's a storm, and he thinks it's his fault because he's messed up. He's not following God, so it's causing upheaval in the ship, and everybody's like, what's going on here? And he's like, I think it's me. And they're like, why? Well, I have a belief, but I'm not living it. And they're like, well, man, get out of our boat. You're gonna kill us. Yeah. And he's like, I will. And he jumps over, or they throw him overboard. And then that, the whale, or, the giant fish, whatever, takes him for 3 days. Kind of a interesting part of the story. And then he comes back and he realizes, I need to do what God told me. And that whole city converts and believes in God. And God knew their heart. And so, you'll get the contrast, which I think is fascinating.
Can that get frustrating? I don't know, I guess this question goes for both of you. When trying to make somebody understand your point of view and you get shot down a lot, or you're not being like understood the way you'd like to be. But like you said, everything's a test. So I imagine just frustration is inevitable. But I do, in some sense, not with God and Jesus, that everything's a test. Or, that everything is. I just don't think that it should feel like one. That it's just you living your life and just be a good person. I don't know. But I guess, going back to my question, does it get kind of frustrating having people understanding you or not understanding you, I guess?
I don't know. For me, I don't really, it makes no difference to me, honestly. Like you said earlier, we're all on our own. Both of you have said we're all on our own path, right? We're making it. For me, it's a relief, I think, that I don't have to be a certain way. And I'm not saying that that's what religion requires, but it's a relief that I feel free, Like I'm not burdened by, having my kids being baptized or thinking about that sort of thing. So it's not a big thing for me. When, back to my friend that was having trouble with his faith, he was flip-flopping a lot. He was like, I don't, it's over. I'm over it. Like, and then he's like, no, you know what? I don't want to give up. And it's like, that's when I was like, dude, read the Bible. Like, maybe you'll get some of your answers. And if not, I don't know, man. I don't know what else I can really offer you. I'm not an expert. What I've done has worked out for me. I don't know if it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. Yeah. So I couldn't get involved too deeply in that. As far as spiritually goes, I will say, when it came to like his career decisions that he was bugging me about, like, I'm frustrated with this or that, and I'm telling him, like, dude, you need to maybe not be like this and do things differently. And he would like blow me off. That would frustrate me. So I can see how somebody, when it's something not as trivial, and I'm not saying that work is trivial, but it's not as trivial as like heaven, or it's not nearly as serious as something as like heaven, God and that sort of thing. I can see how somebody would be frustrated by that, and why then they have that attitude like, oh, they're not going to be saved. They're not going to make it. So for me personally, though, no, it doesn't frustrate me. And I'm not trying to push my beliefs on anybody. Yeah. I feel like we'll all come to that realization one way or another. I'll find out the day I die, right? Yeah. That'll be the last test, I guess.
Yeah.
But
That's a great question. Frustration is easy to come by, so
Yeah.
that's a given. So that can be. It can be. I do. When you said sometimes we have these, the freedom of not having to feel like I have to do this or that. I can see that in a way. I can see that, and I think it's true that there is some kind of freedom to that, and so it's less frustrating that way to not have that. But at the same time, if you think about, like, for example, this setup right here, there's some rules you got to follow, right? You got to put your headphones on. You got to, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but talking right to this mic, and the lights are going to dim on and off.
We're going to have to get up again.
We're gonna, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the sound's got to go on. There's some rules you just have to follow. And so if you're saying, I'm not trying to go against what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is sometimes we can say, well, yeah, I don't need to have any rules. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but it can be tempting to say, I don't have to have any expectations.
It sounds like I'm coming off like that, like I'm like living like
but I know
this.
that's not what you exactly mean. But like my own path. Well, yeah, but true. And there's some exhilaration in that. I can see that. I just have nothing to do. I just could relax on this beach or on this mountain, and I just relax. And I think that's totally fine. But there are some rules as to how do you get up that mountain. How do you get to that beach, right? You got to walk to it. You got to know the path. And so I believe that's the same with religion or with the path in life. There has to be a path. There is a path. And there's way amazing places where you can have those vistas where you can just see the amazing vista and you have to do nothing and just enjoy that. And I love that. But there has to be a path, The reality is everybody's going to die. We're all going to die. You said it. And then what? And I haven't died, and I can't pretend to say what it looks like over there. But I believe or have faith that Jesus has died and he's resurrected. And that's the amazing thing, like Easter coming up, right?
Right.
If you believe that changes everything. That changes everything, if that's really true. That Jesus resurrected, and therefore he makes it possible for all of us to live again. I'm not talking reincarnation or becoming an animal or something. Being yourself again. Your body is perfected. I mean, if that's true, I come from a point of, yes, that is. I believe that. It's faith. I haven't seen it. Then, boy, that changes everything. Like, I want that. And everybody's going to receive that resurrection because it's a free gift to all. But I also want to be in heaven. So is there a path to that? So then to me, yeah, there is. But I can see where it can be frustrating to be like,
you're doing this wrong.
Or someone tells you this, someone tells you that.
Right.
It's like, oh, now I got all these voices
Can be
and all this
overwhelming.
stress. Yeah. So I could totally see that. That's why I think you have to find out for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to, and which is, back to that experience of Joseph Smith where he just had to ask because he believed he could receive an answer. And so, I always like to tell my students, and I love Japanese things. So you brought up Japan. Like their cars, in my opinion, they're better. Or at least they're more reliable. Their technology is great. So I'm like, how do you know Japan's really there? You've been there. So,
Yeah.
So this guy, he would know.
Yeah.
But most of my students have just lived in El Paso. So
Right.
and they're like looking at me like weird, like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, how do you know Japan's there? And I said, well, there's a video. There's Toyotas. There's, PlayStation. They make them there, right? It's on the map. But have you been there? No. And so, or the wind, for example, the wind, right? How do you know there's air, wind? Well, I can feel it. Do you see it? No. See, in this world, we're so evidence-based. You have to prove it to me, show it to me. And I think we go about the wrong way, saying, you have to listen to me because I'm your dad or because I'm this.
Yeah.
Can a person actually feel it for themselves? Can they get through the experience? So let me go to Japan. I'm going to go check it out someday, I believe Japan's obviously, I've never been. My wife's been to Japan, and so I totally believe her. But it's like, how do you know? Well, we'll talk about the wind. I felt the wind. Well, how do you know it's there? Some things you just have to take by faith. How do you know you're going to get a degree at the end of this, You finally getting to graduate. You have faith,
don't.
right? You got faith. You don't.
Well,
You got to have that
Yeah.
faith in
Yeah,
something.
you're right.
And for me, it has to be, for me, it's in someone. It's in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's in God. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's a roundabout way to say, yeah, it's frustrating. And I love you don't have to be frustrated because it's okay.
Yeah.
But, there's a path. And the point is not being over stressed out about it that you get so out of whack that you can't look at any path.
right.
I'm like,
Then it's gone.
I'm frozen.
Right.
Like I'm frozen right here. And that, I don't think God wants that for you either.
So solely because of time, I just have one little small prompt left, and it's kind of out
Yeah.
of there, but it was kind of something what you were talking about earlier about our divine self. You had said that, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask you too, from your different points of views, and that is like, do you believe that there's a higher purpose in life? And if so, who's in charge of that? And is it ourselves, somebody else? And what is it, if anything?
I don't know, Wayne, you want to go first?
Sure. I absolutely believe there's a higher purpose in life. I believe there's a purpose. This couldn't be it. So my baby son died at birth.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm not saying it for emotional sake. I'm saying it
Mhm.
just rationally. I mean, I loved him. I loved him for the minute he was alive,
Mhm.
seconds. Is that it? Absolutely not. Or my grandma, or my dad. My dad passed away 18 years yesterday, actually, on St. Patrick's. 18 years. Crazy how time flies. I know my dad's still around. He's gonna live again. I have that faith. That proof, like physical, scientific right now, no, I don't. It's on faith. But I do. And boy, that makes it so much easier to live my life than when there's no clue what's going on. And I'm just, I live my life. I go A, then I go B, I go C. And there's just no guidance that way. I've not lived it that way, so I can't really say. But can I empathize? I definitely can try with the person that can't see that. I would want to. I want to be there for them and listen to them. I'd hate to be preachy to them. That doesn't help. But as a purpose of life, absolutely there is. The purpose is to have joy. Whether it's throughout this life, here and there, those vistas that you get, up on the mountaintop or on the beach, those moments exist, and they're there to help us, give us some hope. They're not all there like that. There's really big lows as well, like I said, people dying or loved ones having trouble. But there is a purpose. It's real. We do have to do our part, though. We got to believe. Just like your degree right now, you got to believe that you can actually get there one day. I mean, it's going to be a pain, and it's going to be hard, and there's going to be some great times. Maybe few and far between, but you're going to get there. You got to have that faith that there is that purpose, and that this isn't it.
Yeah.
And I believe God's plan is amazing, and it gives me a lot of hope, and I got a lot of excitement for life and peace in my life as well. And I love sharing that with young single adults like I do all day long here by UTEP, because I love hearing their experiences and their trials. I mean, I don't like that they're having trials.
Right.
I wish I could take them all away, but at the same time, I'm like, actually, that's what's actually helping you to learn. But I want to be there for you. And so I believe God's there for us, that he has a plan, and that sadness and despair is not the end of this life. We may feel that way at times, but that's not his purpose for us. His purpose is for us to have joy and to live together with our families forever. I think, and again, our families right now aren't perfect. So you might be like, well, I don't want to live with my dad. He's terrible, or my whatever, or my. Well, if they choose, to be better and are a good person, like you guys mentioned, and I'm trying to be a good person, and we can be together forever, that's amazing, and in a perfected way, that'd be amazing. So I do believe in that, and I believe it's really hard for me to see how someone not having any purpose in life or seeing how they could really eventually feel any rejoicing at all, because it's like, I don't know, feel that'd be really hard, really depressing.
Yeah.
Again, do I have a corner in all happiness? No, we got our lows and our highs, but I think it's been a great blessing for me to know that. And I served him as a missionary in Spain, in Barcelona, and Barcelona, and I was able to share that with people for 2 years, and I do that every day now. I'm doing it with you guys here, just talking.
Yeah.
And I love doing that because it gives people some hope, and it gives me hope. Again, is it based off on faith? Yeah, because I haven't been there yet. So that's my hope and my prayer that there is that life after death, and there is a huge purpose for each of us. Each person, from this guy with all the popularity in the world to this person in the middle of the Amazon jungle that nobody has a clue who he is, and he doesn't even know who he is, that everybody has an amazing, incredible purpose in this life, and that God loves us. So, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where to even start with a higher purpose. How would you define that? I think if we think in terms of like the Abrahamic faiths, they call it heaven, right? Hindu would call it nirvana, right? I'm not sure if there's any sort of ideal of heaven in Buddhism or in Japan. I'm sure there is. Shintoism, I'm sorry. I don't know. I think life is circular. I think when I die, whether I'm cremated or buried in the ground, there will be processes that will act on my body that will give whatever's left of me back to the worms, the dirt, the trees. I don't know. The one thing that I'm unsure of is the soul. I do think that we each have one that's unique, and I don't know how to explain that. Maybe the universe is like one huge soul. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to get too conceptual here, but like that's where I would go, is that when I die, my soul will be part of the bigger consciousness of the universe. If that makes sense. And I think that everybody's souls get poured in there. And so I don't know if there's a purpose, honestly. I don't. If there's a higher purpose. I don't know if I can say that for sure. I obviously can't say that for sure, but I don't even know if I would have, or even where to begin on starting to believe that. So, but that's just...
Yeah. My perception of that, or my belief, is kind of like mixed match with the both of yours.
Yeah.
In my last podcast, we talked about like our body image, and I had said many times that it is only temporary, and I do believe that. I also believe in the soul, and I believe our higher purpose personally is ourselves, if that makes sense. To just experience joy and experience what we needed to live through. I think I just personally, I'm just like, this can't be it too, like this is not all that is available for me, because we're all coming from different walks of life, and especially in this day and age, you need to have money and to be rich and be successful, and some people just aren't able to get there, and I just think that's so unfair. So, though I don't know if it's heaven, I do believe that there is going to be something else. I'm just not sure if it's going to be rest, though. It might be some more tests, or it might be a whole completely different experience. But I believe this is just part of our journey. And so this body is only temporary, and I'm going to go on to the next phase of whatever the universe has in store for me, whatever God may have in store for me. I guess I'll find out when it happens.
Yeah.
I guess we all will, which is the terrifying part, but is also why I respect religion so much for having that faith, because I wish I did, and I tried. I just couldn't do it anymore, personally. I think it was just time for me to look for my own answers, but I'm okay with that. As of right now, who knows? I'm still young. It'll change, maybe. But I just want to thank you guys for having this conversation with me. I really, really enjoyed it. I hope to do this again. Just learn about different people's perceptions of the world and religion. I had a really good time. I hope you guys had a good conversation.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that was our fourth episode of the Prospector Podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope you learned something or got to thinking, or maybe just started thinking about something with no matter who you agreed with. I hope to catch you on the next episode. I'm Adam Regalado, and this is the Prospector Podcast. Cool.
Awesome.
Good
Thank you,
stuff.
guys.
Thank you.
That was great.